episode here of the Soccer Show. I'm Giancarlo Lino, joined as always by John Nelson of OSG Sports and the master coach of the York Lions, Carmen Asako. We got to start off with some big news in football. Gianluigi Buffon. I was really hoping he was going to pull the Ric Flair again and go, I'm never retiring, go another year. But at 45 years of age, he called it a career. I'll start off with you, Carmen. Buffon started his career in Toronto. You had that story of Nato Sega and Buffon. What do you remember most about seeing Buffon at his young age and then seeing the career he ended up having?
Yeah, I mean, just the prototype of what a goalkeeper should be, what a professional should be. Obviously, the memory of the 2006 World Cup will forever be ingrained in our lives as Italians as well. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. All those years with Juventus, just just an incredible professional, and just a prototype of what a goalkeeper should be, as far as I'm concerned, and probably the best in the world when we look back.
And just that time, Nada with Sega, you share that story again for, I know viewers here, it's a popular story that doesn't get enough credit.
1995, he was part of the Parma team with players like Benarivo, and the goalkeeper at the time was Luca Bucci. And Luca Bucci was with the national team, top keeper, and his backup was the former national team goalkeeper, Galli. So what happens is they did their training camp in Ottawa Sega, and they were about to play the NSL Selects at the time, 1995. And, I would never forget that. So Luca Bucci started the game, played half the game, and the second half, former national team keeper Galli comes in, and half of the half, they actually took him out and put Buffon in. And that started an uproar, and Galli kind of made a scene. And lo and behold, the new backup for Parma for game one of the season was Buffon. And Buffon was after the first game, Luca Bucci gets hurt. Buffon comes in and never looks back. 17 years old. We're talking about, he's 45 now. So that was pretty much a 27-year career, 28-year career, where he's had so many memories. But it started all here in the grand city of Toronto at Varsity Stadium, with Galli having a hissy fit, and Buffon becoming the backup keeper and eventually the starting keeper when Luca Bucci got hurt, and I believe it was the first game. But he never turned back, and then the rest is incredible history.
Yeah, just like Galli having a fit against a select team ends up leading to one of the greatest careers in as a goalkeeper in football history. So that's kind of unique. Like, somebody would be that mad to get subbed off in a select team in Canada, game that's meaningless, but good for him for doing that, because it led to a series of events. John, what do you remember most about him, and just seeing the kind of player he was, because he was one that stayed loyal even when they got demoted during that whole scandal in 2006?
And that's part of it. I think that how he represented country, how he represented club, the loyalty that was attached to it, except obviously at the very end, when he does the 1 year at PSG, and then he goes back to where it all started with Parma. I think that you obviously have to think of him as one of the best ever, and you look at longevity and all of these different hallmarks that are attached to the career, and you can't do, you can do no wrong in referencing Gigi Buffon as one of the best ever. So I mean, it's, but as we say, there are two folks that are undefeated: Father Time and Mother Nature. And Gigi finally just is like, okay, I know I can't. I'm gonna try to beat my head against that wall as long as I can. And hey, you made it to 45. We all know that keepers age differently.
Yeah,
and you can have keepers that go into their 40s and still be as sharp as possible. But obviously, you got to tip your hat to somebody that like Gigi Buffon for the career that he had, not just on the international stage, but on the club stage as well. And that loyalty aspect that we don't see enough of, I think, these days. I think it's a generational thing. And to have that element that's a part of that career that will always be admired and adored for somebody like Gigi Buffon.
And it's interesting because his time, like his generation, I know the whole debate is always like Iker Casillas, Manuel Neuer, but like just because of the Euro Championship success and Champions League, Buffon didn't win the Champions League. He was close a few times, but I'll ask you this, Carmen, like, is Casillas and Neuer, like the fact that Buffon went up to 45 at a high level, does that still have more strength in the argument, or is Euro success like the deciding factor because they got the World Cup and the Champions Leagues?
Yeah, no, I think that they'll look at the best of times of the best of times, and if you look at the best of times of the best of times, all three keepers were incredible. But I think there's lots of room to argue that Buffon. I mean, as a student of the game, I would say Buffon for me was the most technical keeper, out there, and was efficient and brave and everything about him. Like I said, I think for me, if you're building a goalkeeper, he would be that best goalkeeper that ever played for me. Physically, mentally, he never won the Champions League. Okay. That's not only about goalkeeping. That has a lot of factors in it. But, a lot of these keepers haven't won a World Cup. Well, actually, Iker Casillas and Neuer have won a World Cup. But I just think that longevity, sure, it has a lot to do with it. But obviously, Iker Casillas might have been playing, and if it wasn't for that heart issue that nearly took his life. But, Buffon for me, like as a student of the game, for me as goalkeeping and its mastery, its essence was Buffon for me.
And just going to transition here to, because we're still speaking of longevity. Leo Messi has a nice longevity with his streak of goals. I think he passed the 4-goal mark that we kind of predicted, between 4 and 6 here. He's going to get close to that probably by the end of this League's Cup.
We said in the league, not in the League's Cup, in the league. There's the
league.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Still has to start. But do you think the whole novelty is going to wear off at some point, and some of these MLS teams are going to get really upset, and it's going to be reactionary where, okay, you got Messi, you got the whole FC Barcelona crew, we're going to go out and spend money too and bring in big names to MLS? Or do you think like it is what it is for this year and they're going to have to wait till the roster changes for next year?
I'm going to leave that with John, because John knows that John's going to talk about the circumventing of rules in the MLS and the need for change of rules in the MLS.
Yeah.
Because Inter Miami is showing something that this league has not seen forever.
No, and I think that the larger point in all of this, and you're already seeing folks in Columbus crying crocodile tears because they wanted to try and find a way to keep Zelarayan, bring in Rossi, and buy down Darlington Nagbe, but they couldn't quite do that because Nagbe's salary is above the number that you can buy down someone to make them an AM player as opposed to a DP. And that was the mistake of the front office in Columbus, frankly. For you're not looking in a crystal ball sitting here saying, yeah, Diego Rossi's available, so we're not going to sign Darlington Nagbe to a contract that's more than $1,650,000. At the time, you wanted Darlington Nagbe, you got Darlington Nagbe, you signed him to a deal for 1.8. Then you wanted to bring in Diego Rossi and keep Lucas Zelarayan, but you can't do that because once again, you've got a rule that is a rule that I think needs to be adjusted. That's a part of this whole framework. But if I'm Columbus right now, I'm not going to. What I shouldn't do is complain about it because you did what you did. No, you can't buy Darlington Nagbe down. deal with it, and that's why you ended up having to sell Zelarayan to the Saudi Pro League for only $3 million, which I think is undervaluing Luka Zelarayan here. And then that cleared up that DP spot. You spend, I think, 5.3 to bring in Rossi from Fenerbahce. Fenerbahce did a smart piece of business in having a sell-on fee or a sell-on percentage. I think it's 15% of any future sale of Diego Rossi goes back to Fenerbahce. Good piece of business for them. But Columbus needs to just accept that these are the rules of engagement right now. And I know that you could probably sit there and say that they're doing it just to say something in public about it. But that's the knock-on effect that we're having right now with Intermessi CF. And what I want to see next year is what the salary numbers are for Busquets and Alba, and we're looking at for Luis Suarez after the end of the calendar year, where he says he wants to retire with Lionel Messi. So if Suarez comes in, it's going to have to be an AM deal unless you figure out something to do with with Gregory and Campagna, and you've got to figure out those DP slots as well. I think what happens in the offseason is Gregory gets bought down, Campagna goes, and then that opens up those two slots for Busquets and Alba, or Busquets and Suarez, or something like that. But it goes to the larger problem. You need more DPs. You need a cap. You need a basement and a ceiling when it comes to this cap. John Thorrington, with what he did last year with LAFC and what he's doing with Chiellini, bringing in Bale, prorating, all these kinds of things, that's great that you've got a capologist that can do that. You need a capologist first and foremost, but the rules need to be adjusted to add DPs, to have owners like Jorge _Moss on the X. And, he wants to have things swimming by the time they move into their new building. Messi can be an ambassador, so on and so forth. But the bottom line is, when you see what's going on in Fort Lauderdale, you've got to see that owners want to spend money, and you want them to do it if you want to bring your league forward. There are owners who are going to want to spend money but currently can't because of the rules of engagement. What this does is, A, it shows the imagination of David Beckham and Chris Henderson, but it reflects how things need to be shifted in Major League Soccer, so the owners that want to engage and invest and try to compete financially, however they want to do it, with a name, image, and likeness deal or whatever, you've got to adjust things, and you've got to adjust them in short order, with the world coming to this hemisphere in 3 years.
I agree. Like, when they have that meeting at the end of the year with Garber, they have to address this. Like, you have owners right now, they're deep pockets that could spend the money, could attract talent. So I think it's just going to come down to, like, everybody agreeing with Garber and coming down to an agreement for the next 3 to 4 years until past the World Cup. But speaking of big fees being handed out there, Carmen, I want to get your thoughts on Richie Larea now becoming the face of Vancouver Whitecaps.
He just fell down again, by the way.
I'm a fan of the guy.
Me too.
Is this disappointing? Like, he has an opportunity to play in Europe. Like, the national team, we hear this whole narrative from John Herdman, like, complaining about, we don't have players in Europe. And now the first thing you have is a player going back to MLS.
Yeah, and Sam Adekubi. Joins two, I think, high-quality players, very high-quality players, and could play in Europe for sure. But it's not always bells. It's not always glamour and glitz in Europe as well. It's a tough business. It's also a kind of fraternity of sorts, because there's a lot of players that people are comfortable with. A lot of managers that go through and are more comfortable with the European player rather than the international players, and that's just the way leagues, even in the Prem, go. Even in the European circuits, everyone's kind of known, and everyone's. So I think that Richie didn't get a fair shake, and I think if he did, I think he would have done very well. And Adekubi playing in Turkey, I'm not so sure the Turkish league is better than an MLS anyway. I'd probably say no. So I think it's going to be a good challenge for him. I think it's fantastic business by Vancouver. You got two incredible competitors. You got two incredible players, and I think that they may bring this team up. Give them a chance. I know the West is incredibly difficult, and obviously LAFC and is still the top league in MLS. It's still the top team in MLS. But yeah, I think that this gives them more of a chance, and it's hats off to Richie and Sammy that want to come into a situation that's not that's got a chance and they can make it better, and it's not the toxic situation that's happening at TFC right now. So I think it's great business. I think it's a great statement by Richie and Sammy Adekugbe saying that, hey, we think that this is for real. We think that this is going to be a great step for us, and you know what? I'm all for it. I'm happy that's happening, and I think that not only immediately, but in the long run, these two are going to have a massive effect on the Whitecaps. Their Whitecaps run for sure this year. Yeah.
I agree. Should be interesting. Just like it would have been nice to see like Larea, his talent, like continue to improve, but he's gonna get a great deal here. Gonna be the face of Vancouver Whitecaps for the time being, and could be something that adds to. That's what they said they want him to.
Over white and gold, Richie Larea is going to be the face. Okay.
I mean, yeah. I think that's Vancouver. It's the city. Canadian soccer, the national team, the national program was built in that city. Some things you guys don't know. It was the hub of all the national team players. And I remember if we had to go with the Olympic team, we had to move to Vancouver. So players like Dale Mitchell and Dominic Mobilio and the Mark Watsons of the world. The national team was built there, and I think that it's a great statement and a continuing statement for national team players of that ilk to come home. And I mean, Adekugbe is an Edmonton boy or Alberta boy, so I think he's a little bit closer to home than he would be anywhere else. So yeah, I think they will be the face, even White, and Gold. I think that the personalities of those two and what they've been through with the national team and what kind of leadership qualities they're going to bring is, yeah, I think that they will be the face for sure. And they've got a great surrounding, a great group, a great group that surrounds them. And not only they're going to be very good at being the face and be good at being the supporting cast. So yeah. And it's a move not taking Rossi over Zelarayan. That move kind of, I can't believe they got rid of him, because I can't believe they let that happen. Even if the opportunity cost is losing Zelarayan for Sebastiano Rossi, I say, hey, Rossi, we'll see you next year, or we'll try to do it another day, because Zelarayan, there must be more to that story, because Zelarayan for me is top 3 players in that league.
And John Carmen mentioned Toronto FC there, and their Leagues Cup is over. Their fans don't have to go through that, so it's over. But like this team, I've been hearing like fans say they need this guy to come in, they need that player to come in. I think this team, it looks like a bar rescue situation. They need John Taffer to come in. It's a call for help. Like from the outside looking in, what have you seen at this Leagues Cup and the discussion surrounding Toronto FC?
That it's an ish show, and it's the season has been a total ish show, and for the fans
or seasons.
Well, seasons, but I mean, since we're talking specifically about this year, this season has been an ish show where you had stars who don't want to be there, they're injured, and then they don't want to be there, and then they say they want to be there, and then one star says he does, the other star says he doesn't, then no, we're on the same page, no, we're not. Then your defense, the defensive adjustments that you brought in didn't adjust your defense. And Sean Johnson has basically been standing in front of the last vestige of a shooting gallery all season long. I will say that flipping Matt Hedges for what you flipped him for is a great piece of business. because, he's a 30-something defender. You get, what, $500,000 in Garber bucks for it? That's a great move. The fans need to have a reality check with themselves, considering what happened during the Can Champ and the assaults that went on at BMO of the Montreal fans. So, and when you throw a megaphone at a player, I don't even know if it was Dude's megaphone in the first place, but you're so mad in Can Champ that you grab the Capo's megaphone. Like I said, I'm guessing that it was grabbed. I don't know if it was Dude's megaphone himself. You yell at a player over the megaphone. The player comes over to address the fans there in the supporter section. And then if you don't like how the conversation's going, you want to throw the megaphone at the player. All of this classless behavior, that's in the stands, much less what's going on the field. I mean, there's got to be something of a teardown. And you've already got the high-priced players that you brought in looking for homes for next year. I'm like, fine. MLSE will write the whole thing off anyway, no matter what the loss is financially from sending players back abroad, because they obviously don't want to be in Toronto. And this rebuild, or whatever you want to call it, it's going to take time. I don't know if the fans in Toronto have that kind of patience. It's something they need to develop, understanding that all of this stuff that has gone on. I mean, I would love it, frankly, if they could have the faith in some of the young Reds that I've seen in MLS Next Pro this year as a part of the build. But once again, I don't think the patience is going to be there. It's disappointing that one of your tentpole franchises in the league and one of your tentpole cities in North America has this going on. All of this money, all of this stuff that you've spent, the stubbornness of Bob Bradley as both a head coach and as your technical director, I still think at times you've got to separate that you've got to have two dudes in those positions who maybe they disagree a little bit, just to kind of sit there and they can have an honest discussion about personnel. But the 2023 version, coach, of this ish show has so much that has to be fixed on so many different levels. It's going to take time. And I don't know if the fans have the patience for it, but they're going to need to develop it.
Yeah, and it's just like what they're going to do next year too. Like, who's going to leave? They already have players now that they're signing. It seems like short term, like they're collecting assets in terms of like the Matt Hedges deal, but I don't know what they're going to make of that. But just speaking on some world football, we talked about last week, Kylian Mbappe. Willie turned down the deal, and I have to apologize to Kylian Mbappe. The old Shaq meme there. I wasn't familiar with his game off the field because it looks like he would get a nice signing bonus, we'll say, from Real Madrid in the neighborhood of hundreds of millions of dollars. So Mbappe knows what he's doing there. Do you think that we'll see him? I'll start off with Carmen. Liverpool's has been popping up as a potential loan destination. Do you think they'll beat another team to the race there, or do you think Real Madrid will eventually make this happen?
I think Real Madrid will eventually make this happen. I don't think it's Real Madrid. I think I think Real Madrid has all the power and all the control in this situation because Mbappe said he wants to go to Real Madrid. He's not going anywhere else. He'll stay with he'll stay. He didn't leave PSG. They chose not to bring him. They chose not to do what they have for him. And if this was less of a circus right now, I think they probably would have done a deal with Real Madrid that made sense. But now it's about egos and it's about maneuvering and it's about getting a one-up in this whole situation. So I think that all the power is away from PSG, and I think that they just don't want to look bad. And they're going to look worse by the end of it, but they don't want to look bad. And it's going to be terrible because a player of Mbappe's ilk won't be playing soccer maybe for a long time until this gets done. I mean, how much are they going to get out of a loan deal that's going to make them save face? Like this is all save face type money, same save face type mentality right now that's going on with PSG. So it would, and Mbappe's got all the power. He's not going to accept a deal unless it's got Real Madrid at the end of it and in 2024.
And John, like, do you think Liverpool can be a loan offer? Even Man United, that's another team I've saw pop up.
No. Did I mention the word no? It's going to be ugly, and you will have a player who may not necessarily be unhappy, because at the end of the day, he still holds the cards. I mean, literally, you had the Saudi Pro League and the PIF walk up to the table, knock on the table, sit there and put an offer of 10 figures to the left of the decimal point in Kylian Mbappe's hands and in his camp. They were like, okay, cool. We'll match the fee. We'll start the negotiation. We'll hit the trigger at $240-something million. And Mbappe still did not want to go for this loan year. Basically, what it would be a purchase year, 1-year contract, knowing it's a 1-year deal. Saudi Pro League is like, cool. We'll sit there and we'll set this on fire. It's like, we'll give you a 1-year deal. We just want you to come over and play against Benzema and CR38 and everybody else. We want this all-star league to happen. And he still said no, which to me means he's looking at comfortability of life. He doesn't want to move 3 times in a calendar year. It's like you leave PSG, you go to Saudi Arabia, you pack up your stuff once, they put you in a high-profile high-rise. You pack up your stuff at the end of the year, you move again knowing full well that you're going to Real Madrid. It's all about, I don't want to uproot my life as many times as I would within a calendar year, knowing that my end game is still Real Madrid. I would be shocked if he said he was going someplace else at this point, considering that offer that was put in front of PSG. PSG said, yep, cool, go for it. And Mbappe was like, nope, not happening. I think he stays at PSG. I think that once again, it's PSG, it's Mbappe and Neymar and whomever else they want to throw into that mix at PSG. They win the league. They win the Coupe de France. They win the League's Cup. They still flame out in Champions League. It's another season like we've always seen at PSG, and then he goes to Real Madrid. In the end of the day, he's in control of himself, and that way it's just like there's a point where you just sit there and it's like, no, I don't want to uproot my life as much as I'll play. I'll honor my deal, and then I'll go to Real Madrid, because there's talk that PSG already knows that they think that there's a verbal in place for him to go to Real Madrid. No, it's all about quality of life, I think, in this year. It's like there's already enough chaos in it as there is. Why add to the chaos by going to Saudi Arabia and creating more chaos as a part of that triangle over a 12-month period?
Yeah, no, Real Madrid can just load up that team, knowing that Mbappe's coming for free. You don't have to worry about the FIFA fair play transfer rules. So I think Real Madrid could be a powerhouse there. But Carmen, what do you think, I guess, in terms of PSG, like, should they be looking at just adding a player right now to replace him and go through the year without him playing? Or do you think it would set a bad tone if he can actively play on the roster and you just don't want to play him for petty reasons?
No, it's win-win for PSG if he obviously not win-win, but they need to play him. They need to let him play because for one, they have the best player in the world playing. Number two, it would almost. I mean, he went back to PSG in good faith, and it was a very loud story in social media about the president, the prime minister of France coming to Mbappe and talking to him and how they need all this, and he was the savior of France and all this stuff, and he did. He fulfilled his duty to a country, to club. Now it's about him. And now it's about moving forward. And they should be respectful of that situation. They should be respectful. And to be honest, if they're not, it'll almost vilify the club versus if they do, it might paint a worse picture of Mbappe a little bit, but he wants to fulfill his contract, like John said. He wants to play. He wants to try and win Champions League. He still wants to be, and he will be probably at his best. So I'm not sure what the issue is. This is the contract. This is the reality of the situation, and it's all about ego and safe facing. They don't need it. They don't need the massive transfer, but in their eyes, it'll look bad on PSG on the outer surface. And if you ask the famed manager of PSG if they want Mbappe playing this year, 1,000% they do. 1,000% they do. So it only makes total sense that he plays, that everything goes status quo, and you know what, PSG eats some humble pie.
I agree there. And final question, I guess we can talk about here: the Women's World Cup, United States. John, are you optimistic about this now? The knockout rounds for the women.
Well, I mean, are we talking? What specifically are we talking about with the knockout stages and being optimistic? Are we talking about the U.S.?
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of people online talking about England having a path to victory, looking good on their end. You think the U.S. it's looking a little tough to get out of here?
Oh, absolutely. As you go in as a 2, and they know that they have issues. They also know, or at least I hope that they know, that they can't just out athletic teams anymore. All of the years past, the U.S. women's national team, if they ever got into a situation where they needed to turn the engine over and hit 5th gear, they could out athletic teams and get things done to get a result. I think that what the larger point is with this Women's World Cup is that the world is closing on itself when it comes to talent in women's soccer. I think that's fantastic for the sport. I think when you have a debutante like Morocco make their way through, where they get blown out in the first match by Germany, then they get the results they need. They knock off Colombia the last day of group, and they make it to the knockouts with a -4 goal differential. They shook off that first result. They got the result they needed against South Korea. They got a result that they needed against Colombia. Germany didn't get it done. Germany ties on the final day to South Korea. They don't get it done. I know we'll talk about Canada probably as a part of this as well, but Canada doesn't make it in. Brazil doesn't make it in. Germany doesn't make it in. I think the larger point here is that don't be surprised by any result that happens here in the knockout stage, considering what we've seen in the group stage. Australia, they've laid Sam Kerr back. Sam Kerr sat on the bench and gave the laser stares to the opposition last day of the group stage. Australia made it through. U.S. made it through. I think that with the United States being a 2 seed, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But I think the larger point that needs to be made is the world is getting smaller when it comes to women's soccer as a sport. Jamaica making it in and the way that they've done it, beating Brazil at the last match day. There are so many fantastic stories that are attached here, but I think it talks more to the growth of the women's game internationally than anything else.
I agree. And Carmen, I'll give you the final point there on that, because I know I have a feeling for England. I know they always say it for when the men play and it doesn't happen, but for the women, I think it's coming home. I think they're going to win the World Cup.
Yeah, it's not a bad shout, but I think being involved in the women's game a lot, I think it's the pragmaticism of even the African teams that we saw, the Nigeria, South Africa, and the inability for big teams to break other teams down is and the inability to have that score. I mean that's what we haven't seen in this World Cup by the big teams, is that person that the teams are still the great teams, and culturally they're going to come back, like the Germans and the Brazilians. It just wasn't like it was the Sinclairs of the world that didn't score. It was the top player.
She had no support either. If you were going to rely on Christine, there was no secondary or tertiary individual, secondary folks
in our preparation. And is it time to go away from the Morgan of the world? Is there someone else on the U.S. bench that's going to be more productive? I think so. I mean, it's going to be a very politically tough move for the U.S., but I still think that their productivity is wavering, and they need to find a different solution. The one thing about the and the Swedes are finding ways to score goals, albeit we've seen a lot of PKs and a lot of PK goals this year in the World Cup. I just and when teams find ways to score goals like the Australians did in their moments, and they're very good in those moments, I think that's the pathway to victory. Is now the pragmatism. It's tough for we saw the Canadians against the Nigerians. It's tough for those big teams for whatever reason to break down compact, narrow defenses. It's tough because of whatever reasons. And to be fair to the U.S., the Netherlands had moments of domination, and they were compact and defended well in their box and defended well in the final 30 of the field. So I think that's the whole reasoning behind those big teams not getting through, and teams like U.S. struggling to get through and pretty much a goalpost away from being eliminated themselves. It's the inability to find that scoring. It's an inability to break down compact defenses. It's the lack of creativity. For me, that was the storyline. Beyond the storyline, it's the pragmatism and athleticism of the African nations, and the lack of creativity in individual players and group play with those big teams, the Germans, the Brazilians even. The Brazilians, for me, were very overrated, and I said that in the show. And the Americans could fall to the same fate, although they're playing a Swedish team that probably fits well. And, they could find a restart. And let's be honest, the U.S. found a restart goal against the Netherlands, and probably we're lucky to tie that game. So there's going to be a slap in the face to those big countries, and there's going to be a transition. And we're going to see the Japanese and the Spanish who got through because they're a little more fearless and they're a little bit more creative. And the teams that were very good in countering and transition attacking that have had the success. Now you have a sample size. So now the bigger teams that are still there have a sample size to see what those African nation teams can do, and to those other teams, or Jamaica can do. So there, I think it's going to be a little bit more straightforward, to be honest with you. But I still think that teams like the U.S. might have to give up on Morgan and find some more creative players, or some more players that can find goals. And thus we move to the English. The English found a way to win 1-0, but then they exploded for 6 and looked fantastic. The French too found their scoring touch, although it was against lowly Panama. But these are going to be the situations. How do we break down compact defenses? How are we going to deal with transition attacking? And how are we going to be more creative? How are we going to find goals? That's where the big teams that are left in this tournament are going to have problems.
All right. First of all, Carmen, and Giancarlo knows it. Giancarlo, you want to start where Carmen screwed up right now? What was it? One. What was the score, Carmen?
I heard 1-0. I heard him say 1-0.
No, stop defending him.
I didn't hear
Stop
nothing.
defending
I didn't hear
him.
anything.
He's the coach. Carmen, go move your couch. Do push-ups. Come on. All right, because yeah, that's right. All right. So as we close it out, I don't know where John is, but we close it out, we're gonna give me your prediction for.
Did for sure about the Americans, about their inability to be creative, their inability to maybe Morgan's not the answer anymore.
Well, and I think to your point, I think that when Lynn Williams is sitting on the bench, I think that Vlatko's got to pull that. He's got to pull that trigger. I think that he has to, and You're looking at that kind of once again, Vlatko knows that he's got players on the bench that can do that, and I think that it comes down to the coach in those situations saying, okay, I've got to bring in a Trinity Rodman. Okay, I've got to bring in a Sophia Smith. Okay, I've got to bring in a Lynn Williams to help change things up a little bit. So it may not necessarily be to bring in a Rose Lavelle. Does Megan Rapinoe have that moment in her late where she can send something in on a cross? It comes down to whether the starting lineup is there, not being afraid to make the change. I think in match, I think that's also a part of the discussion where Vlatko should be concerned.
All right, so let's get to the preview of round of 16, and then we'll close it out with Giancarlo's memories of his favorite goaltender, Carmen Asako. All right, so let's get to tomorrow, 1 a.m. 1 a.m. And look, I'm wearing Spain shirt. Switzerland and Spain. Giancarlo, you'll start us off.
Switzerland, 3-0.
All right, Giancarlo's last time here on the soccer show. Good luck to you, Giancarlo, with your Phil Kessel and your hot dog. John Nelson.
Spain takes care of business at a -278, no problem.
This is why he's the Hall of Famer. All right, Carm.
I think Spain does it, and I think they learned their lesson against Japan for sure. I think that the athleticism and strength of the Swiss could have some problems, but I think facing a European opponent is very very positive for the Spanish. Let's say 3-1 Spain.
All right, you'll start us off, Carm. 4 a.m. Japan, Norway.
Interesting. Two totally different type teams. One strong and direct, one quick. I think the Japanese deal with their quickness is too much to handle for the Norwegians. We will say 3-1 Japan.
Giancarlo.
Yeah, I agree with Japan, but I think we'll go to extra time. I think Japan wins 2-1 extra time because of the durability.
John.
I'll go Japan. I'll say 2-1, but I think it's in regulation.
All right, you'll start us off, John. Netherlands, South Africa.
At a -125, Japan, yeah.
The right line. Yeah. The Japanese, what are they, a Toyota?
10 p.m. on Saturday. Netherlands, Saudi Arabia. John.
Netherlands, South Africa, sir. Netherlands, no.
South Africa. Sorry.
I think it's 3-0. I think Netherlands get the Duke, and they do what they need to do at a -417.
Carm, you're too comfortable. What's your pick?
4-0 Netherlands.
All right, Giancarlo.
Yeah, I think this will be a blowout. I'm going to go 3-0 just to be kind to South Africa, but I see the Netherlands winning.
All right, John, I'm waking up at 4:55 on Sunday. Sweden and America.
I think it's going to take a while. I think it's going to be 2-1 U.S. in added time.
Giancarlo.
I'm going to go with an upset. I think this goes to penalties, and I think Sweden wins.
This is a tough one to call.
All right, Carm.
I think if it goes, I question the mental fortitude of the Americans this year. I think if it's either a 2-0 game, or I agree with Giancarlo, it's going to be Sweden and PKs. But I will give the Americans the benefit of the doubt and say they score one in the 35th and another one in the 95th. 2-0.
All right, Giancarlo, you'll start us off. Monday, August 7th. It's a civic holiday in the States. So in Canada, John, don't wake me up at 3:30 in the morning. England, Nigeria. Giancarlo.
Yeah, I think England wins. I think they're on a path to at least going to the final here. I think this is going to be another comfortable win. I say 3-1. I say Nigeria gets one in there, probably after England have got comfortable and scored the 3 goals, but I'll go 3-1 England.
All right, John.
I think England gets it done. I'm looking in that same vein. I don't see. I think Nigeria. I don't know if Nigeria gets one at a +950. I'll go 3-0 shutout for England.
Carm.
You know what? I think the English, they had lots of trouble with very, very compact defenses in the first game, although they found their scoring touch in the last game. You know what? I'm going to say it. I'm going to say this is going to be, even though I think England can win the World Cup, I think this is going to be my upset.
Ooh.
I'm going to say
He goes England winning the World Cup to upset in the first round. There, go ahead. All right. So, Carm,
this is the time to lose. If they get through this game, I think it's going to be massive for them too. But I think this is going to be one of their toughest games. So my point is they have a chance to win the World Cup. But I'm predicting an upset in this game, 1-0 in the 90th minute, Nigeria.
All right. Australia, Denmark, Carm.
The Australians win 1-0. 1-0.
1-0. Giancarlo.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be a 1-0 win for Australia in regulation. I don't think this goes to extra time, and Denmark can build off this and for the next 4 years and come back stronger.
John.
I think Sam Kerr comes off the bench late, gets the win for Australia, 1-0.
All right. Tuesday, August 8th, 4 a.m. I'll start off with John. Colombia, Jamaica.
Oh, Jamaica's had problems scoring goals, so I'll go with Colombia 1-0 at a plus 104.
Giancarlo.
I got Colombia winning. I think this is also going to penalties, and I think they get the job done.
Every game is going to go to penalties, this guy. All right. Carm.
Crazy that these two teams drew each other. It's absolutely crazy. But I think that Colombia is going to win this 2-0.
All right, you'll start us off with the last game in round of 16, 7 a.m. on Tuesday. Of course, we got France and Morocco. Carmen, go ahead.
It's going to be a lopsided one. I think the French are also one of those that are positioned to win it. I think it's going to be at least, let's say, a 4-1 game.
All right, John.
I think it goes to extra time. I think, to Coach's point about the teams from the African continent, I think that Morocco tries to find that one opportunity. I think France wins it 1-0, but it's going to take the extra 30.
Giancarlo.
I agree with John that it's going to take the extra 30, and I also agree with Carmen that once it gets to extra time, like, that's when we'll see France start scoring goals. I think they'll say, okay, Morocco, they got us here, but in extra time, I think they figure it out, and I say they put in 2 goals, so 2-0 France in extra time.
All right, so Giancarlo, I'll start off with you. Great goaltender announcing his retirement at age 68. Your thoughts about Buffon? There you go. It's your favorite player of all
time. Go to the beginning of the show.
No, I got something set up. Don't worry. Giancarlo modeled his game, soccer game, as after Buffon, right? Or was it modeled after Carmen Asako? Because I know you wanted, when we were talking when you were 12 years old, you wanted to be a goalie, and then you said goalies.
I never played goalie.
Guys.
I never played
you
goalie.
Wanted goalie. So
I never
go
played
ahead,
goalie.
give me your thoughts.
Yeah, goalie Buffon, greatest of all time. Maybe David De Gea can one day get a resume like that for Spain.
Say it right if you're going to reference.
David De Gea and Iker Casillas can, maybe say that they're in that realm of Buffon. Who's another Spanish goalkeeper that we can bring in the discussion?
All right, Carm, your thoughts, because you were a goalie. Was, in your eyes, was he the best?
For me, yeah, I like a prototypical goalkeeper who knew how to win games. Yeah, for me, he was the best. And I think Iker Casillas, his competitive level, but the consistency of Buffon was always great. Iker Casillas had ups and downs. Neuer is going through his time right now, or his hissy fits right now. But for me, Buffon was consistently the best goalkeeper, or the top 2 goalkeepers in the world, regardless of what was going on. And as far as, like I said, for me, the technical ability, his play for me was the best. By far, Lee was the best goalkeeper to ever play this game.
The World Cup,
you
he only
learn
let
from
in
him?
an own goal.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember watching him train at Nottawa Sagayan, and I was just in awe of not only Luca Bucci's incredible athleticism, but just the technical. Buffon was kind of born to be a keeper. Physically, he was immense. Not only his height, but his length, his every muscle was in the right spot. And then you saw him work, and every step, every motion, every hand, every finger, everything was in the right spot to make saves. You guys can't. You got his movement, his lateral movements. Every movement was so fluid, and it's like watching the master at work. I couldn't explain it. And goalkeepers, you know, a goalkeeper may understand what I mean, but every step, every power step, every skip, it was so motor skill wise, strength wise, technique wise. It was like a beautiful motion. It was like artwork. If you could appreciate artwork as far as goalkeeping was concerned.
Okay, did you learn, since you were a goalie, did you learn anything from him?
Absolutely. I mean, now the goalkeeping is absolutely ridiculous for me. What's happening in that transition that's happening is absolutely ridiculous to me, and you see that transition all the time, and I don't get it. Sorry, I shouldn't say ridiculous, but I did preface by saying to me. But for me, the goalkeeping was what Buffon, the Van der Sars of the world, that technique, that hand motion, that movement, from all of it, there was a different style of goalkeeping, and I mean, and now there's a lot of transitions in that goalkeeping, and you see that Neuer kind of is, for me, is the anti-Buffon as far as goalkeeping. Are the results the same? Sure, but as far as goalkeeping, I just don't understand his technique. I don't understand how he makes those saves compared to what the fluidity of a Buffon and the Van der Sars of the world, or of those types, the Leymans of the world back in the day. Those are the goalkeepers that, for me, were the prototypes and the most efficient. Now you have the Neuers of the world, and you have and then you have kind of mixes of Neuer and the Neuer style and the Buffon style that's kind of changing these days. So,
all right.
Yes, I'll shut up now.
Final
Get him talking
final
about
thought goes to
it's goalkeepers.
final
then.
thought. Final thought. Well, because we'll bring John into it, but I want to say happy belated birthday to Aaron Stevens. Giancarlo did not remember. I spoke to him, and he's very upset about Aaron. You did not call him, you not message him, and all that. But
he doesn't
final
like
thought,
when people wish him a happy birthday.
So yeah, right. Final thought goes here around the table with Carmen, who 3 weeks ago said Messi will not score 10 goals. All right, Giancarlo's laughing now. All right, Messi will not score 10 goals.
This says
In the league, I know that's what he's going to say. You gave him an out, John. You gave him. Look at him. Go ahead.
Bollocks. All this is all stuff that doesn't matter. The League Cup is for entertainment. It's like WrestleMania. So.
What are you talking? SummerSlam is tomorrow. Come on, in Detroit. Come on. All right,
Yeah.
acknowledge them.
Yeah.
John, do you think he could keep it up?
No, because
in the league.
No, because of schedule compression. I mean, all you've got to do, and he's not going to. You're chasing after 2 titles. You're chasing after an Open Cup. You're chasing after a Leagues Cup. Both of those, if you win one of them, you get into CONCACAF Champions League. But because of the spaced out nature of the Open Cup semi and the Open Cup final, one being in August and one being in September, you can't risk for the moment not being active in Leagues Cup and chasing after that title. If you win one, I think that if you chase after the other, I mean, because you're going to have 4 matches. I think it's 4 matches in 11 days and 5 in 15. Messi and Busquets and Alba are not playing 90 minutes in each of those 5 matches, and it's across multiple competitions. That's why I think there might be some matches where Messi makes a cameo. Chicago apparently has sold out Soldier Field, and I mean like everything in Soldier Field for Messi. And is Messi going to play? I'm more concerned. Everybody's talking about turf versus grass. I'm more concerned about schedule compression when it comes to Barcelona West. And so that's what I'm looking at in all of this. That's why I think the goal total in league is not going to be what we're seeing in Leagues Cup.
Yeah. And he's played every game in Florida. He hasn't gone on one of those 6-hour flights across the country. Which.
All right. So, John, go ahead.
No, I agree. I agree with Carr. I agree with Coach. I think that it's, the first road game this weekend, it's going to be in Frisco, Texas. Frisco, Texas, the forecast, 105 degrees. You tell me that he's going to play 90 minutes. You tell me Busquets is going to play 90. You tell me Jordi Alba is going to play 90. Quoting our friend L.A. Knight, no. Not going to happen. So that's why I think that goal total is going to
Talk to me, John. Talk to me.
I think
all right.
I'm right there with Coach. I just don't think he's going to be playing all of those matches, and I think that goal total is going to go down.
Okay, and Giancarlo has just texted me. He wants to know Carmen's opinion and prediction of the main event for SummerSlam tomorrow. Acknowledge Roman Reigns or acknowledge his cousin Jey Uso for the undisputed title. Carmen Asako, go ahead.
Jimmy Snuka is going to beat Ricky Steamboat for sure.
Ricky Steamboat's on Wednesday, AEW, or on Saturday on Collision. Ricky Steamboat's the referee, Saturday Collision. All right, John, start us off. Tell everybody how they could get a hold of you.
Easiest way is right there on the Twitters, at OSG Nelson. And follow along there. Download the Soccer Down Here app and the OSG Sports app on Android at the Google Play Store. Go to Spreaker. That's like speaker with an R in the middle of it. And do a search for Soccer Down Here and OSG Sports. Download the Spreaker app, and you can listen to our content that way. Right there's book number 6, Noble Strong, Lessons in Destiny. You can find that on Amazon. And you can do either a John Nelson, no H, or a Nobles Strong search, and you can grab the book. And I've got copies here at Office HD. If anybody wants to pick one up that way, I can personalize it and send it to you that way. So there you go.
All right, Giancarlo, go ahead and give them your social media.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at John_411, Instagram Giancarlo_Alino. Check out my articles on firedupnetwork.ca, including that York United recap where things got a little dicey at the end of that game with Baldissimo getting a red card. So updates there. Check out my articles on sportsgate.com and interviews if you're in Toronto, Vibe 105. Recently talked to a coach that sends his regards to Carmen, Coach Pepe of International FC Academy. We talked about his camp going on this week, and we talked about Buffon. So check me out
there. Carm, I like your Chesterfield. Do you want to bring one over to Office HQ like John says, or what?
This is Office HQ.
Look at it. Look at this guy. Is he a coach or is he golfing? Are you going to go golfing in the next hour or what?
Why? It's a T-shirt.
All right. Any last comments, Carm?
No, none.
Best comment ever. Best comment ever.
Thanks a lot. And by the way, in just a few hours here on the Fired Up Network, Fem Friday, the ladies of the Fired Up Network takeover. Fem Friday, over 2 hours of programming later on today. Thanks a lot. Have a great long weekend. And John, you're an honorary Canadian. Celebrate on Monday. Civic holiday.
Nope, working, buddy.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye.